MPs will have at least 6 opportunities to force a fresh Brexit referendum when any deal struck by Theresa May is put before Parliament this winter, campaigners believe. A report has identified half a dozen openings for supporters of a people's vote to use their muscle to give the public the final say on whether Britain leaves the EU. The Prime Minister has repeatedly insisted it is my deal or no deal, arguing the only alternative to rejection of her agreement will mean the chaos of the UK crashing out next March. London Mayor Sadiq Khan calls for a second EU referendum, but the report, written by Lord Carr, the former diplomat who wrote the Article 50 exit notice, after discussions with constitutional and legal experts, dismisses that claim as false. Insisting recent polls showed that people want the right to decide, Lord Carr said, the die is not irrevocably cast, there is still time. If there is a majority in Parliament for a people's vote, there are multiple routes to securing one, and, as the process unfolds, more opportunities for the House of Commons to assert its will may emerge. Should the UK need more time for a people's vote, there is little doubt that the other 27 member states would agree the necessary extension of the Article 50 timetable. The Independent has launched its Final Say campaign, to give British people the crucial decision on any Brexit deal, which is supported by more than 810,000 people who have signed our petition. A young protester shouts as she takes part in the People's Vote demonstration against Brexit. A protesters pro-EU t-shirt, Gina Miller and Caroline Lucas. Tens of thousands of people march through London. Demonstrators at the People's Vote march. 2 months too young to decide on my future. A young girl joins in the march. An EU flag is draped across the statue of Winston Churchill in Parliament Square. Vince Cable MP, pro-EU campaigner Gina Miller, Tony Robinson and Caroline Lucas MP join with crowds. Crowds gather on Pall Mall. A man resembling Britain's Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson joins EU supporters. People gather in Trafalgar Square. Pro-EU campaigner Gina Miller and Tony Robinson. EU supporters, calling on the government to give Britons a vote on the final Brexit deal, participate in that People's Vote march. A young protester shouts as she takes part in the People's Vote demonstration against Brexit. A protesters pro-EU t-shirt, Gina Miller and Caroline Lucas. Tens of thousands of people march through London. Demonstrators at the People's Vote march. 2 months too young to decide on my future. A young girl joins in the march. An EU flag is draped across the statue of Winston Churchill in Parliament Square. Vince Cable MP, pro-EU campaigner Gina Miller, Tony Robinson and Caroline Lucas MP join with crowds. Crowds gather on Pall Mall. A man resembling Britain's Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson joins EU supporters. People gather in Trafalgar Square. Pro-EU campaigner Gina Miller and Tony Robinson. EU supporters, calling on the government to give Britons a vote on the final Brexit deal, participate in that People's Vote march. This plausible scenarios for forcing a further referendum, identified in the report entitled The Roadmap to a People's Vote, are the motion to be put forward by the government shortly after any agreement has been reached with the EU, which could be amended the statement promised if that motion is rejected, or if no agreement has been reached between the UK and EU by the 21st of January next year. The Commons Speaker will determine whether this statement can be amended the Withdrawal Agreement and Implementation Bill, the full legislation to implement the exit deal, which will also be subject to amendments the Prime Minister deciding that, with Labour and Tory rebels poised to vote down her deal, a people's vote is the only way to secure a mandate Ms May deciding, having failed to strike a deal with the EU, that she has no option but to ask the public whether the UK should leave the EU with no deal. Legislation after a snap general election forced by the Brexit crisis, an outcome that today seems very unlikely, but it is not inconceivable. The report says it concludes, if a people's vote is not granted by Parliament, it will not be due to procedural impediments or a lack of time, but because MPs have chosen not to take these opportunities. Lord Carr also repeated his insistence that the Article 50 notification could, if necessary, be revoked unilaterally to halt the Brexit process, a cost-free option. Downing Street has been accused of suppressing legal advice that Article 50 can be withdrawn, even without Brussels' agreement. The report also suggests the preferable question on the ballot paper for a fresh referendum would be a simple, the deal versus stay, or, if there is no agreement, no deal versus stay. The Prime Minister has repeatedly ruled out another public vote on Brexit, describing the idea as a gross betrayal of our democracy. The Independent has launched its Sign Our Petition Here